Well, hello there, Retro PC Durham. Chris here. It's time to build a computer. In fact, we're going to build the Pentium II computer. A couple weeks back, we did a video showing off all the parts we're going to use to put this Windows 98 computer together, running a authentic 90s era Pentium II board and processor with, relatively 90s era other components. There's a couple that I may be breaking the rules a little bit, but I have to work with what I have to work with. So we're going to get together all of these parts in one group inside of a box. Let's get started. I didn't plan out exactly what I'm going to do when, so I had just started putting everything out on the table and figured out, well, we'll just get into it. We'll just bang ourselves into it. So there's a couple extra components that maybe I hadn't talked about in the preview video. So we've got some fans that are going into the case, and I had picked out a power supply to go in here. We've got this 7-team 400 watt power supply. I didn't check actually the manufacturing date on it. It is working. It's tested, and I have opened it up to test it to make sure that everything's clean inside of it as well. So, but it's got a nice. This is the reason I got it, was it's got a nice clicky main off switch on it, which of course you're not going to use to turn it on and off. You're going to use the power button at the front, but it's still nice to have. So I've got all the components here, and I guess what we'll do is, I guess we'll probably have to start with the case, right? And get all we'll build everything in as we go. So I'm going to move my PCI cards over, my IDE and floppy cables. I've got a couple CD cables here to hook up in the audio. Move my memory DIMMs over, and we'll get the case up here, I guess. Okay, so here's our reused case from MDG, which is a computer retailer in the Canada area. I'm not even sure if they're still in business or not, or if they. I know like Canada Computers still exists, and I think Best Bite Computers might still exist. Those are other clone computer places that existed in the 90s and early 2000s and still around now. I don't remember if Best Bite's still actually around. Or MDG, sorry. Okay. So we'll get our side panels off, and now we've got to start working on this piece here. So for installation, we got our motherboard's going to go here, obviously, power supply. We have a speaker here. We've got some front panel indicators that we're going to put on here. This slot here will hold our front fan, and it actually all just snaps into place, so there's no screws required on this side. And then the other fan was going to go in here. So what should we do first? How about we do the one thing that you always forget to do, and then you feel silly afterwards. So let's do that first and put our I/O shield in now without cutting ourselves. That's going to be the real trick. Okay. Next, we can put in our optical drives, I guess. That seems like a good next obvious place to go, which is install our optical drives. So the ones that I originally was going to use when I was doing my parts testing, the DVD drive was toast. So I actually had to swap out for a different pair of drives. So I ended up I picked two that I had that were both Mitsumi drives. This was actually from 1999, and this one is from, I don't think I saw a date on it, 2003. So it's a little newer, but it's what I kind of have. But I did this because this one's got a multi-burner here, and then I've got a regular DVD-ROM drive here. So, and what's important is they kind of have a little bit of an older look to them, right? And and then the fronts kind of match, which the original ones that I was going to use were a matched pair of a DVD and a CD-ROM drive, or DVD and a CD burner. So this is what's going to happen. We're going to install these two, and slide them into place, and kind of line them up, and then I'm going to get some screws, and we're going to lock her down. Make sure they don't go anywhere. Now, where did my... There's my screwdriver. I'm not using the lucky screwdriver today, the lucky orange screwdriver. We're using the plain old black screwdriver from my plain old Canadian Tire tool set. I've been using this more and more because it's a number 2, and I recently had been doing a lot more opening up of power supplies to test them, and the screws for power supplies, my orange screwdriver, which is a number 1, would not open those screws properly. So the number 2 has been getting a lot more action, and just decided to use it today as well. So we got one down, and we're going to get our next one in here. Uh-oh, I missed. Let's try that again. There we go. 1 and 2, and then I'm gonna put screws on the other side, but I'll do that after. Once I've got everything else installed, and I'm doing what little cable management is possible to do with IDE cables and and a 90s era computer case, or early 2000s era computer case. I'll put screws in the other side for all the other components. Yowza! Sorry about that loud noise. Okay, so those are in now, and I had already put the pin placements in for master and slave on this as well, so those are ready to go. The next components to install will be our floppy disk drive, which I have a floppy disk here that I'm just here to remind me that I have to create a boot disk for it. I always try to make sure I remember to make a floppy boot disk for any of these older computers, just in case I lose the one that I had picked out for it, or that I was using when I was installing Windows, that I always keep one there because they're kind of helpful to have around. I'll probably end up burning a Windows 98 install disk for this as well, and I might even burn a separate CD or something, or I can use DVDs actually. With all the other stuff that I install on it. Okay, so that's in. And then the last thing for drives we're going to install is this Quantum Fireball that we install. This is a 26 gig Quantum Fireball, so like way more space than you would ever really need in a Windows PC, Windows 98 PC, but that's fine, right? We want to make something that's going to be really fun and have a lot of good capability on it. And again, I didn't decide to use a solid state storage mainly because I have a ton of IDE hard drives that are all still in very good working order. They've got you'd be surprised. It's actually surprising to me sometimes that some of these drives can be so old and still have 0 bad sectors, but it mainly comes from the fact that they've had so little use over the years that they still work. Okay, so we've got our hard drive, floppy drive, and our 2 drives here. This has been pinned, I believe, to master. It's going to be on the primary controller. These will be on the secondary controller, and then the floppy drive, of course, is on its own controller. So that is done. Now what I think I might do is I'm going to go ahead and install our fan. So as I mentioned, it's really easy. It just clips off here. And then our fan just has to snap into this spot here. So I'm going to make sure I align it correctly. I want to blow in. So I want my fans going this way. And I want to have my cable kind of like this. So that's going to be where we install it. And I just snap it into place. And that's it. The whole thing's done, ready to go. Really easy. So very happy with that. Simple design, and I've just got this cable here ready to install wherever it needs to install from a pin perspective. Next up, I guess we'll install the board. actually be a good time to check as well that I've got my standoffs where I need my standoffs to be, because I did not check those prior to hitting the record button. So we're going to take our board here and we're going to slide it into place and see where we're missing pin connectors. So it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3. I think the one here doesn't need to be used. Okay, so this one needs to come out. And these ones here. Oh. Can I reach it? Can I reach it through that little hole? I got it. And here, needs to come out. Okay, so we come back down here, and so I'm gonna slide this back into place again and see 1, 2, 3, 4, we're good, and then I need 5, 6 down at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to put my board back over here for a moment, and we are going to install 1, and 2. So now I have all 6 of my standoffs ready. Save that 7th spare standoff. Put that into the bin so we can use that on another future build as needed. And we have all 6 of our standoffs now set and ready to be secured into place. So let me start getting standoff screws here to use. And I've got some long ones here, which I don't think I want to use for this build, because I don't actually know that these standoffs that are here will hold the entire screw. So I just got some magnetized screwdriver here. I'm just pulling the screws out here and seeing which ones I have to work with. So I'm going to see if I can grab all of the ones that have the felt washers on them. 1. It looks like I'm looking in my bin there, and it looks like some of the washers have come off. So we're gonna pick some regular screws as well and make them home. This one doesn't seem to want to go in, and I can't tell if it's because it's not actually, that wasn't actually in the right position. I was screwing it down into absolutely nothing, in fact. Okay, let's keep going here, Chris. Find our next spot. There's our next spot. I'm not tightening these all the way. I always find, and you may find it works differently for you, but it's always worked well for me, is get your screws into the position they need to be in, and then make sure you've got all of the screws that you need to screw in, into their position before you tighten. That way, if you need to, shimmy things around, you can do so without having to worry about any other issues. And that, I don't know if I just, picked that up along the way, or if it's from working with boards that I've ordered from AliExpress in the past, where they sometimes don't have a standard layout or standard design, right? So they've made a board that's maybe like 1 millimeter wider than normal. And I'm not even sure the reason they do that. Maybe it's for them to get around IP issues, or I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, right? You can't sue them for intellectual property if they aren't exactly the same. That could be it. I'm just making that up though, that's a guess entirely. Okay, board is in. So that's ready to go. I would probably say the next thing I'm gonna do is our front panel connectors, because if I leave them any longer, I'm going to end up with cards or IDE cable or something else in the way, and I'm not going to be able to get the rest of it done. So let's get this done. Our front panel connectors are all located down in this spot here. So we're going to start off with our reset switch first. That's on the bottom corner here, and beside the reset switch is our power switch, and that is power here, right beside it. And then the next we want to look at here is our power LED, which is a 3-pin design. So that's why this one's split. So I'm going to go 1 and 2, and then our message LED or hard disk drive LED is going to go into the 1 pin in slot right about there. Okay, that should all be in correctly. And then I'm going to take this fan connector and we're going to hook it up to the fan connector spot right there. And then I'm going to take this speaker connector and we're going to hook our speaker connector up, which goes into the first 4 pins at the top part of the panel selection over here. So there we go. All our front panel connectors are now installed. That should be done. No more worry there. Next on the bill here will be to install our memory DIMMs. So we're going to install our memory DIMMs. These are all 256 megabyte Infineon. One of the great things about this P2B board is it actually does support 768 megabytes of RAM. So that's pretty darn cool as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to install these 3 sticks. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so our SD RAM sticks are installed in the system. When I did the initial OS install on this, on the hard drive, which I did already, I installed it with only one of these sticks in, and that's because Windows usually has issues with large amounts of memory, the older versions of Windows 95 and 98, etc. So I started with 256, and then after I got all the updates installed and the little tweaks that let you put more memory and all that stuff in, I put the rest of the memory in afterwards. So just something to keep in mind if you're ever building an older PC like this. You start with Windows 98, and then after you do the tweaks and tricks to get all the other updates done, that's when you put the extra memory into the system. Okay, what should we do next? How about we do our cabling next? So I'm going to take my cables for our drives, and I'm going to plug them in first because they're going to be harder to get to after the fact. So we're going to take 1 and we're going to take 2. And now these guys are going to go here, and we're going to have to remember which one is which. So maybe I'll put this guy here on this side of the processor, and I'm going to put this guy on the other side of the processor. And I'm not going to leave them there, but I'm going to have them kind of away from the IDE and floppy cables for now, so we can resolve that later. Okay, now for our rest of our cables here, our first IDE controller is at the front. So we start with primary IDE first, and that's going to be this drive here. I'm going to kind of fold my IDE cable back over that way, underneath. Kind of folded it like underneath here, and I'll clean it up afterwards, but just to kind of get it out of the way, we want to try and do some cable management here with these ribbon cables. Okay, this one, we'll do the same thing, maybe. We'll fold it, and we don't have to fold it as far because we're going to end up using both of the connectors, not just one. So we'll do that, and we'll have both of those now plugged in, and this kind of tucked down a little bit. And then the last cable we have is going to be our floppy cable, which will plug in to the floppy controller. And that is folded opposite, but should still be okay. And then we'll do the same thing with this, but I'm gonna try and fold this. I'm trying to fold this under a little bit farther. Yeah, and then all I have to do is plug in here, and I can see, it's hard to see, well, maybe you can kind of see, the, let me see if I can get this. You can kind of see on the floppy that 34 there. I think that's there to kind of tell you where the end of the pins are. And that's what I'm using to tell myself that I need to install my cable like so. Because there isn't a notch guide on this drive to make sure you plugged it in the right way. Okay, so now we've got all of our IDE cable and floppy cables plugged in. The next thing I think I might do is, should we maybe, I'm wondering maybe I should do the PCI cards next, even though the power supply hasn't been installed yet. And the only reason I'm thinking that is because I want to get these two cables taken care of. And I want to make sure I have my sound card installed before I get to that. So, yeah, how about we do that now? How about we install it? I know it's a little bit out of order to do it like that. Normally, PCI cards are like one of the last things you do, but we're going to do it this way because I decided we're going to do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to move this guy here, and I'm going to move this guy kind of like that. So first thing we're going to install is our, it's an MX440 video card. So it's this Asus V8170 128 megabyte. So that's, great amount of memory for Windows 98 PC for video memory. But it matches the PCB for the system board. So I figured that was, meant to be, kind of meant to be. So that guy's going to go down. Let me move here again so we're lined up correctly. So that's installed. Next is going to actually be, I think, this USB controller. So I've got this VIA USB controller. It's a VT6212L, and you can actually still download the drivers off the VIA microcontroller's website. So that was kind of cool that they actually still had that. But I got now an issue where I hadn't previously removed any of the slot covers on this system. So we're gonna have to remove those, and I probably should have done this beforehand, but I was just so darn excited to finally get the chance to sit down and do this tonight. So, okay, we got one off, and I think I'm gonna have to take this one off as well, because we do have a full complement of PCI cards in this system. Next, after the USB card, should, I think, be our sound card, yes? So we got our USB controller here. And the reason why I actually picked the USB controller is just because I wanted to have whatever the smallest card was next after the video card. And that would make sure that it gives, a little bit of air on that heatsink, because it does partially cover up the heatsink when you do it that way. So the next one on my list is going to be our sound card. We ended up using the CT4830 Sound Blaster Live. And that's got the connections we want to plug in here, and I'll do it now before I slide it in. So we're going to put CD in, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I can use the aux in as well as a secondary input for CD audio. So we're going to install those. And then where are we going to put these guys? How are we going to run them? Are we going to have them kind of run down? And you know what I'm going to need to do? I'm just realizing as I got to think my way through this. I'm going to run these underneath the IDE cables, and that will kind of cable manage them away from everything else. So Pardon my elbow whacking the camera and the tripod here, but you know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. You got to make those sacrifices for the greater good. All right, so that's now taken care of. We've got our audio cables plugged in. These guys are just gonna kind of, I don't know what they're gonna do. They're gonna move underneath here and get out of the gosh darn way. Okay, that's ready to go. Next up, I think we'll do our, how about our wireless card? So we have a D-Link, no, not a D-Link. This one we had a Linksys. This Linksys Wireless G PCI adapter. So Wireless G, 54 megabit per second maximum. Doesn't have any advanced capability for security. So you're not going to use this on a regular network. But I thought it'd be cool to install it. And then for network cards, I had a whole bunch of those ISA net cards, and I really wanted to use one of them, but I kept getting massive IRQ conflicts. And I think it just may be because this board is so late in its life and has so much stuff on board. It would have been a lot of challenge of like disabling tons of onboard devices to get one of them to function. And none of them, sorry, I should say none of them, all of them except for one were like plug and play ISA. So you couldn't manually set IRQs on the board to force stuff on the system, except for one of them. And I even tried with that one. It wanted to use either IRQ3 or IRQ10, and it just was getting conflicts nonstop. So I had to end up using one of the PCI ones, but it's a good one, right? This Intel Pro 100 is a great, you know, very compatible card. Drivers are easily available. It's an Intel 440BX chipset on here, so you know, lots of good compatibility with the system chipset. And we're installing that in the last of the PCI slots. So we've got a full complement of PCI slots. Again, what would make this better if I had an ISA sound card instead of a PCI sound card? Yes, would absolutely be great. And if I could have got one of those ISA networking cards, would have been great as well. Also would have been great for heat management to spread out the cards, right? Have ISA, you know, the space to the next PCI slot here, and then a blank before the graphics card. But it is what it is. 5 PCI cards are installed in here. We do have the fan that's installed over here that's going to be doing a lot of work to help out, which normally, I mean, on an older machine like this, you might not have had any other fans in the system except for the processor fan. So this might just be kind of a big deal. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is actually install our case fan that's going to go at the back here. So I've got our case fan here. I've got some case fan screws that I always keep around whenever I disassemble a dead machine. I will try to scavenge as many components out of it as possible. So I do have some case fan screws available here, and we're going to line this up. So I'm going to have the cable down near the bottom if possible to have as little cable management needed as I can. I'll get my screw ready to go here, lined up, and I will just get it started. Okay, so that one is on, and then we have to get our next one in. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like I'm screwing like right in front of the tripod. Not very well lined up at all. Okay, I've got my 2 main screws in here. There we go. Now I'm not in the way as much. So I'm going to get that screw in, and then I can get this one in. And then our first ones will get tightened up the rest of the way. And that's plugged in. So the last thing we need to do with this fan is plug it in. So we just have to kind of angle down here, and that is in place. And I'm going to tuck our cable kind of back up under where the fan is installed here. So there we go. We now have everything that we need here except for our power supply. That's the last guy that's going to go in here. So I'm going to slide him into place. And then we just need to get him screwed in. And for that, I will use some more case screws. Not the fan screw kind of case screws, just the regular case screws. I'm just pulling out a handful of them here, so I've got enough to pick ones that are going to work. So I'm going to take my first screw and I'm going to line up a hole and get that screwed in a little bit, not all the way tight. I find especially with power supplies, this is an issue with getting our screws lined up is sometimes a challenge. So it's good to do it loose first. And then once you've got it in nice and comfy, you can go tight. Like right now, where I've got a little bit of an angle issue here. So I'm going to make sure I'm nice and loose so I can move things around. And now it looks like things are a little bit easier to get at. That spot right there, no, that doesn't want to catch. Okay, we'll do this one then. We'll get this one to catch. Okay, that one caught. And now we will pick our final magical screw to get into place. The magical one that does not want to grab. There we go. It grabbed. So now we tighten that. And then we can tighten these guys as well. And we are nearing the finish line here. The last piece we have to do is our power and cable management of power. So let's start with our main ATX power cable. I need to face this way on the power cable, so I'm doing so. I'm going to come down over top of the processor, and I can tell you, you are having trouble seeing this with the camera view. I'm having trouble seeing it as well. So it's a bit of a blind install for me. I'm kind of feeling my way. There, we got it. Okay, so this guy is gonna have to go, I think we're gonna fold like, can we come around the side? Oh, can we come, oh no, I'm like pulling the processor off. Okay, we come around the side like this and kind of push down the side of the processor. I don't want to clip, I don't want to hit that tension release on the processor though. I kind of clipped it a little bit there, but I wanted to kind of get that down the side. If that kind of stays there without causing any trouble, that would be good. That'll stay out of the way really well. Okay, next up, I've got this small power fan, and this will be good for just for BIOS information generally. I can plug it into, where can I plug it into? Wait, do I need to plug it in? I don't think I need to plug it in at all. No, because I have my case. I thought I had another fan header. Okay, so it must have been some kind of forgetfulness on my part or not thinking straight on my part, but there isn't another header for a fan on the system board. It's just the processor fan, I guess a power fan, and then a chassis fan. And because I'm using both of those other ones for other fans, we're not going to have any connection for the fan inside the power supply, which, I mean, this is not a big deal. It's not like it's doing fan control for the power supply. It's mainly just to give informational data to the BIOS. as I understand it on these older boards, where it's got the power connector. So we've got that hooked up. I don't need this power connector here or the 4-pin power connector because they're not being used on these older systems. So we're gonna, you know what I might need to do now? We might need to stand it up because as we plug these power cables in, I want to push stuff through to the back. So let's do a little bit of a move here. We are realigned here to make it easier to see what I'm doing. So now I can reach in, and when I'm, saying, oh, I don't need these guys, so, let me move them through to the back, and then, I can figure out where they're going to go and cable tie them or whatever afterwards. So that leaves us with, I believe it's 2 or 3 runs of cables here. Yeah, we've got 3 runs of cables. So I've got 1, 2, 3 of these, and I only need 2 of them. So we're gonna take this guy here, who's already a little bit, he's already a little bit pinned up here, and we're gonna push him through to the back as well and clean him up later. So now I only have these 2 guys to work with here for my remaining components. We'll put this one in for our power on our floppy, and we'll put this in for our power on our hard drive. And then, actually no, we won't do that. We'll put this in for our power on our hard drive, and then we can flip the rest of this up and stuff it. Should be able to, I think, yeah, this floppy drive doesn't have the drive open on the bottom, so there's nothing for it to catch on and not spin, which I've had be a problem before in the past with trying to cable manage ribbon cables and stuff underneath the floppy drive. Something to keep an eye out for. Okay, so that one's done, and then next we're going to do our power for our optical drives. So I'm going to plug, again, I'm going to take this one on the bottom, and we're going to plug this one above it, and then our floppy cable that we're not using for floppy power will go up top here, and then all this extra run for our power is going to get kind of bunched up on top of the DVD drive. And this cable is kind of like coming apart a little bit in terms of its twist, so it's really messy. Ah, hello. Go back. All right, now if we flip around to the back, I've got these guys to deal with here, right? So we've kind of got this run of cables that we don't really need. So what are we going to do with them? And I figure what you do with them is just kind of, you stuff them in the back. You just shove them in the back and get them out of the way. And they should be causing no further never mind for me or you or anyone else. That's it. They're gone. They're done. That's cable management right there. 101. I'm going to block that off right now. We're going to call that a win. We're going to call that a win right there. Look at that. Yeah, look, it closed easily. No issues at all. No issues at all. We'll put 1 and 2, and then come take another look around the front, and let's take a look at our cable management job. So I think this turned out pretty well. I mean, our IDE cables are kind of tucked into the side here behind our drives. We've got all our power cables kind of moved out of the way. I have a clear view of our memory DIMMs. I can access all the cards here without any issue. Yeah, think this works really well. Okay, well, that's taken care of. Let's now go ahead and screw all of our PCI cards in to our system so they're nice and secure. We don't want them bouncing around. There's our 2 network cards. Oh, I dropped a screw. I'll pick that up. Then we'll do our sound card, our sound blaster, then our USB adapter, and finally our graphics card. This MX440, which again, I mean, it's not a superstar video card, but it's got enough juice to get the job done reasonably well. And then I got 2 more screws here I'm just going to put into the remaining empty, unused slot areas. And that's just if there's ever any need to install something in the future, I'll already have the screws that I need ready to go there. Yeah, so we're done with primary assembly. I'm going to get the case lid here, and we'll slide that on. And get that screwed into place. Number 1, number 2, and we are now finished. Well, almost finished. I'm going to get this set up with all the other components, and we're going to do the boot test and just make sure everything works properly before we call this a finished part 2. So the next thing we're going to do here, I'm going to get this guy picked up, and we'll turn him after, but I want to keep him facing this way for now so I can get everything plugged in properly. Okay, what do we have to do here? We need to... Okay, look at these. I got beige power cables. Trying to keep the theme, you know what I mean? So I got 1 power cable, and we're going to need a 2nd power cable for our monitor. So we'll plug that in here. And then I've got my VGA cable. We're going to plug that in right here. And put that over on the side here as well so we can add our monitor. Okay, what's next? Might as well actually, why don't I grab the monitor and bring that over here. Oh boy, CRTs are heavier than LCDs, in case you may have forgotten this. Okay, so pretty easy to plug in. We just got our 2 plugs like flushed up with the plastic. So let me get that taken care of. Get my VGA connection here screwed in, and my power cable. And then if I can turn these guys around here, push it to the back kinda. And well, it powers on. Powers on at least, so that's ready to go. Now I just need to grab the rest of my accessories, and we'll get them going as well. So Next up is going to be our speakers. So how am I going to do this? We're going to put our speakers on. So we'll put them on either side of the monitor, I guess. So I'm going to undo. Pardon my lighting here. Okay, so we got our speakers. We're going to put on either side of our monitor, and let's get this plugged in. I might have to start moving this over here to make more room. So speaker power, and then our audio cables. I'm going to plug in our audio. And even though I don't have a microphone to jack into this, I am going to plug in that as well. Okay, so we've got those ready to go, and we'll might as well put our speaker power on a little bit. Okay, and next up will be our NEC PS2 keyboard. It's going to go on the table in front of our lovely monitor. This guy will kind of run into the back, into our nest of cables. Which way am I plugging this in? There's the arrow. All right, keyboard done. And finally, our Microsoft IntelliMouse 1.1a. 1.1a. Version 1.1. Revision A. Okay. That looks like we've got everything ready to go here. So let's move our camera just a little bit farther out here. And that should be a good angle. All right, we're going to do our power on test. So let me make sure our boot is clear. Power on at the back. And our power button. Power button. Power button. Did I flip the switch the wrong way? Oh, it's on. I got it on right. What am I? Oh no! Guys! We're not powering on. Well, okay, this is unexpected. I guess we're going to have to do a little bit of a diagnostic here now, right? All right, let's do our diagnostic. I'm wondering if it's just as simple as I got the cables wrong. Like, did I get the cables wrong? Is that the only thing that's wrong here? If I go and pull down. Yeah, I must have had the wrong cables in. Our screen is a little bit... sorry about the flicker, obviously. My resolution capture here on the camera is going to be around 60 frames per second, and this is probably 75 or 70 maybe. But it looks like we've got a good run here. I don't know why I'm getting a CMOS checksum error, because the battery that I installed in here is good, but maybe that's just because of the time that it was off. It's been a couple days, obviously, since the last time that we had this thing booted up. So boot now seems to be going just fine. We might need to do a little bit of work on the screen, obviously, to get it doing everything that it needs to do. But it seems like for now there's not any just playing a little bit with the contrast and brightness settings on this. Ooh, getting a little bit of a whistle from the monitor. So I think it might just be, it might not like the resolution that it's set to here, because I don't think the last time I booted this up I had it hooked up to the bench monitor. So we're gonna have to fix those. Yeah, we picked up the monitor here. So we're gonna get a resolution change and hopefully get that whistle off of the screen. Because the monitor right now is very unhappy with us. And Windows is updating our clock for daylight savings time for some reason as well. Okay. Well, yeah, the CMOS did reset. 1996. It is not 1996. Let's just set this back to 2021 for now. And we won't worry about the rest of that because we don't really need to. I just want to get this past this section here so Windows can finish booting. Oh yeah. Windows 98. Second edition. Awesome. Rad. I can't help myself. Every time that song plays, I just gotta stop and bop my head a little bit to it. Okay, let's change our Windows settings here, because obviously 1280 by 800 does not seem to be the correct resolution for us to be working with, so we're gonna have to change that. So let's go with 1024 by 768 and see if our monitor, I don't think it likes that either. Let's go 800 by 600. Yeah, I think that is much better. That is definitely liking the screen resolution a lot more. I'm not getting anywhere near the whistle that we were experiencing before. So that seems to be working okay. We can switch to 32-bit mode, and I think we're supposed to be able to get 75 Hertz out of this. So the whistle is coming back, so I'm going to maybe bring it down to 70 Hertz. Oh no, it doesn't like that at all. We'll go down to 60. Yeah, I guess that seems to be the best. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take it back up to 1024 by 768 and see if... Why is it telling me 200 Hertz? Come on. 60 Hertz. Yeah, it doesn't like that as much. So, okay. Playing around here. I don't know why you're trying to push these heavy Hertz signals, graphics card. So 800 by 600 at 60 Hertz seems to be nice and clean. Yeah, so this is up and running very well. I am happy with where we're at on this. I'm gonna figure out the pin settings to make it so that this thing actually boots and resets properly. I guess the manual was not lined up correctly with with what I have actually on the board, or I was just reading it wrong. So we're going to get that fixed. And the next video I'm going to do a third wrap-up video on this one, where I'm just going to play a couple games and do some benchmarks and, you know, show off the, you know, the Windows experience on this machine in terms of how well it runs now that we've actually got it running. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I know it was a long one, so thanks for sticking through to the end. If you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe. I like to do this type of content from time to time on top of my cataloging of my donation machines. Really appreciate it. Hope as always you're staying safe and healthy, and we'll catch you in the next one.